This is a Windows 10 computer, and look at the speed that it's going up and down download at, which is the standard download speed, and that's the upload speed. And what I'm going to tell you is this computer is connected to my fiber optic internet by means of a fancy router that's running wireless. And you'll notice that the speeds are the same in my house between wireless and wired. So right now the upload's a little bit slower than because it's evening and there's a lot more people using it. But at the same time, it's pretty much what I would get if I was on wired. And I'll show you the quick the comparisons in a second here. If you go to our meeting notes, I've placed all these tests I've done to show the speed differences between wired and wireless. Okay, so I'm going to open that up and show it to you. How's that? And that's right here. I call it Wi-Fi generations. Okay, they didn't have generations until a couple of years ago when they decided to rename all the fancy technical terms that they were using for Wi-Fi generations. Okay, now to make a long story short, if you go to this slide, then I'll tell you what that slide represents. How's that? From the bottom to the top, the different generations of Wi-Fi. Okay. I'm running out right now at my house running Wi-Fi 7. And no, that's next year I'll be. I'm running Wi-Fi 6E at my house. 6E. That's part of the 802.11.11ax standard. Well, look at how fast things are when I'm up there when I'm tied into this computer by Ethernet, 202 and 229, 202 down, 229 up, right? Look how fast I am when I'm running Wi-Fi 6E or even 6. With 6E, it's right on the money. With 6, it's about just a little bit slower on the upload, but actually a little bit faster on the download. See? So look what happens when at the bottom there, when I'm running 802.11n. That's what most people have. If you get a internet connection from anybody, they want to cheat you and give you a real crappy Wi-Fi connection. And usually it's 802.11n. Just recently, they started putting it a little faster around the neighborhood here. At 802.11n, look at the speed I'm getting down and up. What happens if you call up the internet company and complain about it? They're going to tell you you need faster internet and talk you into a faster internet line instead of telling you that they've sold you either a crappy router or a router that's part of one of their wireless Wi-Fi modems. See? So basically they're using it to upsell people instead of give them a good service. And that really is bad, okay? But that's how they make more money for themselves. Okay. Now, one of the things you got to worry about is Wi-Fi 5. Look at how crappy it is. It's worse than 4. And they've had many problems with drivers. They've had terrible times with it. And everybody that got it gave up and went back to N that I know. Okay. Now, that's just what I'm trying to show you is if you get told a pack of lies by your internet provider or by anybody who purports to be an expert at a meeting, then go through some of my details here. First, this is a really good, and I have trouble finding them other than buying them from Amazon in Europe and Amazon in England, a super good, indestructible, super fast wired adapter for a laptop or a computer. They sold out as soon as the gamers got them. And so now the only way you can buy one is to go to Amazon in England and have them ship it to you. So that's a hard thing to do, but you can buy other ones similar to it that aren't quite as fast. Okay. So I just happened to get to look into one. Anyhow, and it goes nice and fast, right? 228 over upload and 202 download, right? Now, if you put in this whole hunk of junk, it's Wi-Fi 802.11g. And look at the speed I got. I showed that to you earlier, right? Out of my 200 down and 230 up, look how much I'm getting on Wi-Fi. And I had to put up with this for a few years when I was in Tucson, because that's all we had I could find for a while over at places like SWS. Okay. So obviously I wasn't going to use it unless I was desperate and had a guest over and I didn't feel like running a wire to their computer. What else I'll tell you about? Okay. Belkin, for actually a little bit less money than this other company, provided this N300. Whenever they give you a number, that's the stated nominal speed that the chip reports to your computer, the chipset. Okay. And when I put that in, what do I get? This is what I guess that 90% of people that have Wi-Fi still have this. What are you going to get? The download speed is about half of what I'm paying for, and the upload speed is about a third. Okay. So that is not about a quarter or a third, somewhere in that range. So it's terrible, right? Everywhere I go to meetings, people are saying Wi-Fi is horrible. Run a wire, even if you got to run it down the hall to your kids' room. That's what I'm hearing people say all the time. They're stuck with this old 802.11n 300 type stuff. Okay. Now, this is that terrible AC one I told you about. Fancy, right? They charged you a small fortune for it and told you it was the best and greatest. I showed you how terrible the speeds were, right? So it's all marketing. Okay. So don't buy anything that says AC on it. And look at the speed they claimed it was 1750. It was nowhere near 1750. It wasn't even 50. Okay. Now, if you get up to this thing for a lousy same price as the AC one, just about, it's made by a company called Edu out of China, and it is extremely fast. It is darn close, within a couple percent of wired, and it's only $32.
So does this work with Linux?
That's the problem. With Linux, there's only 1 or 2 adapters in the whole world, and not sold in the United States, that will run with USB adapters. So what did the Linux people do? They buddied up with Intel, and they speeded themselves up in the Linux world with an adapter called 810, an Intel 810 chip, and it is lightning fast. It'll go any speed. I haven't found a USB adapter that will work with Linux, but these Intel PCIe slot adapters work wonderfully. So every time I install Linux on one of my computers, and I have this PCIe card in the back, Linux grabs it real quick. And so what happens is Intel wrote a bunch of code, put it in the open source, and they put it into the Linux kernel about 3 years ago. So that's the one that works. This stuff is a waste of your time with Linux, okay? Unless you have friends in Europe or someplace where you can get one that does work with Linux. Don't bother. Just put in one of these $30 Intel jobs. I'll show you one of those in a minute.
That's a PCI card, you're saying?
That is correct. That's the only one that works. And it works wonderfully. Every version of Linux I've tried that's based on the Debian, I haven't had much tried with any other one. As soon as you load it, finds this adapter and loves it. Okay. What else did I tell you about? Okay. If you win the lottery and you want to go up to the 6 gigahertz band, like I did, because you have so many darn customers, competitors using the 5 gigahertz uh, channels for Wi-Fi. This is wonderful for $100. Okay, big difference between that $36 job and this 100. And there's a slight difference in speed. When there's everybody's on, well, back when everybody was trying to do Zoom into their classes around here, including the teachers in my neighborhood, this was the only thing that worked. Okay, and so it's because it's up on the 6 gigahertz channels, which none of our teachers and students were on. But it is pricey, and it takes you up to a new price range. Okay, now if by the end of this year, Wi-Fi 7 is coming out, and it will have 6 gigahertz. Every Wi-Fi 7 requires 6 gigahertz. And so 6 gigahertz channels will become more standardized. Then, of course, all these teachers and students will get on there and join me. And I won't have the free use of those channels anymore. See the problem? So let me show you real quickly, just for laughs, what does work very well with Linux. And that I have no problem at all with Linux as long as I use this. I go here, and I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to go to Amazon, and I'm going to go try to make it bigger, if nothing else, so people can see it. Where the heck did it go? There. Okay, now I'm my favorite vendor for stuff, and go I think it's called an Intel AX210. Intel AX210 adapter. And the best one is made by a company called Fenvi. Let's see if I can find them. FENVI, enter. Okay. Most of them now come in this format, okay? But you can still get them in this format. Comes with a nice antenna and everything. You don't have to get fancy rewiring your laptop. And when you plug that in, all of a sudden, Linux loves it. It's called an AX210. Do not buy one that's AX211. That's a weird one that they designed to make certain gamers happy that won't run in most computers. So there's weird stuff out there, okay? Intel has some what they call gamers that it tries to cater to. And they often design things that don't work in regular computers. You have to have a motherboard that's worth a couple of grand, that kind of thing. So stay away from anyone that say 211, okay? And I've got one in both my computers. And every time I fire up Ubuntu, it actually finds it before it finds the wired Ethernet adapter that's on the motherboard. So it's really happy with this equipment. Intel and Linux are buds.